Hello, Facebook friends. So, hopping online because it's been an interesting week. But whenever I have a client session where I get to distill some of what I understand in a more simplified way so that it can be repeated, I like to try to record that as fast as I can because I think these topics around personal growth can be really complex, not in terms of what one should do, because we all know self-love is better for you, yay, but more in terms of how to do that. You know, I think that's one of the biggest obstacles is to personal growth is like, okay, that's all great and good and well and whatever, but how do I actually do those things? And it's not just about writing a journal and meditating and whatever, like not just about habits that are external. There's ways to learn to hack inside and kind of retrain your brain and retrain your inner habits that I don't think are explained often enough. So I want you all to benefit from what a recent client got to hear, and hopefully it will help you on your own personal growth path. And I love to hear feedback. So if you join and you're interested and you're learning something, let me know. Or if you watch this recording, let me know what you think. So why do we need a neutral inner observer? Why is that important? If you have ever had the experience, which I assume you have, of judging yourself more harshly than you judge other people, or if people tell you, like, give you good feedback about yourself and you have a hard time accepting it as reality or as truth, but instead, like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, you think the bad stuff is easier to believe. If you're trying to be on a path of personal improvement but have a hard time not devolving into a lot of harsh self-criticism. If you've ever thought, I'm an imposter, a fraud, I can't do this as well as other people, I have more problems, I'm too flawed, I'm too messy, things like that. Basically, it's like, how do we develop self-love and self-compassion while still improving ourselves, right? This is a thing that I hear from a lot of people when I say, like, really work on the inner critic and get them to calm down and release the harsh judgment. A lot of times, one of the big concerns that the inner critics will have is if I don't kind of beat her up and make sure that she works really hard on this and is constantly improving, she'll turn into some kind of narcissistic a-hole. Right? like the critic tends to think if I don't beat you up, then you'll turn into a jerk, because my beating you up is the only thing keeping you nice, keeping you working on yourself, keeping you caring about how you impact other people. First of all, let me say that that's not true. For the majority of people, 99% of people, unless you have some kind of significant personality disorder, and even then it might still not be true, but there's very few people who, if they weren't getting criticized inside themselves, would suddenly lack compassion for how others are impacted by their behavior. So that's one reason that I bring that up, is that that's often an inner fear. The experience that we have inside of ourselves a lot of times is that the inner critics are the ones who are judging us based off of a model of perfection. And if we were to take whatever quality it is, like, let's just say you want to learn to be a better dancer, like you always kind of wanted to dance, but you're kind of a beginner and you're terrified of being judged and you think that you have to do it perfectly. Well, But you would never look at anybody else who's starting to learn that and think, oh God, that person is the worst ever and they should be so embarrassed and that's awful. Most people wouldn't think that. You would think, well, they're just a beginner. Why would I expect them to be on So You Think You Can Dance? Like, that's not realistic. So we tend to have a slightly more, or maybe a lot more, of a neutral observation, a more realistic level observation and value assessment of other people than we do of ourselves. So one of the things that we can do is connect in with the inner critics and help them understand that they came into the scene when we were much, much younger. So this is what I was explaining to my client today. And they came into the scene when we were kids, when we were little kids. And we have a biological imperative as animals to be accepted by our guardians and to belong with them, to make sure they know we belong with them, so that they will take care of our physical survival. Just like we see in the animal kingdom, sometimes a mother will reject her young and not somehow, for some reason, not understand that that's one of her litter. And without human intervention, that animal can die, right? In the wild, they do. If a litter pup is rejected by the mother, they die because they can't take care of themselves on their own. As babies, we are very much the same way. We take up to 6 or 7 years before we can, sort of fend for ourselves, and not in Western society, but just as beings. We just don't have the physical or mental capacity to do that on our own until we're much older. So for the first, the formative years of our lives, we are very biologically geared to demonstrating and proving over and over to our guardians that we belong with them, which means their pleasure or displeasure feels vital to our survival. Does this make sense? Like, we have to feel like our guardians, our mom, our dad, or whoever's raising us is pleased enough with us so that they keep taking care of us. So this is something that gets built into our psyche as beings. And as we get older, there's never anything that dismantles or updates that unless we focus on it psychologically with some kind of rituals, personal growth program, retraining, basically. Everyone has to go through an update, like a growing up update, to let the parts of us that focus really hard on pleasing the people around us, to make sure that we belong in their tribe. So we care so violently about the approvals of others because it's still based in that much, much younger mindset. But as an adult, you don't need that, right? Like, you don't need the approval of your coworker. You don't need them to love you in order for you to be able to eat or, feed you, like wash yourself or get a roof over your head. That's not how we work anymore. You don't need the grocery store clerk to approve of you in order for you to get water and have a safe place to sleep. You are capable of taking care of yourself. And it's sort of leaving out the whole, yes, we as human beings are still social creatures and we do still need to get along in general, but that's not the same as having to really map to a primary care provider, right? So one of the things that's important to do as we step into higher levels of self-maturity and responsibility is uncoupling our self-evaluation from that tie to other people's approval. So one of the things that helps with this is being able to self-evaluate independent of other people's feedback. Most of us, we receive a bunch of positive feedback and we kind of have a better day, and we receive some negative feedback and we have a crappy day. And we're not really curating that process. It just is reactions. Does that make sense? Like, it's as if someone's throwing pies, and you're just getting hit with them. And it's like, whoa, now I'm all messy. Instead, what we can learn to do is develop a neutral inner observer. So an aspect of ourselves that evaluates what people tell us about ourselves without necessarily buying into it wholeheartedly. When I was in grad school, they used to say, instead of catching feedback from the world right between the eyes or right at the heart, catch it over here, like in a catcher's mitt, so that you can look at it and kind of, discern it more objectively, like, well, this piece of feedback seems useful and I see how that's meaningful to me. And this piece doesn't resonate, doesn't seem like it's about me. I'm gonna sneeze, baby. Excuse me. So this takes a lot of practice and hard work to cultivate, especially when we're so used to just reacting, animalistically to people's feedback, positive or negative. So do you have a sense of a neutral observer within yourself when it comes to watching what other people do, not related to you? Do you have a sense of knowing whether someone's analysis of anything, a restaurant, a movie, is overly biased or is worthwhile feedback? So, for example, if I'm to listen to someone's review of a movie, I may weight their opinion of it more heavily or less heavily, depending on whether I think they're offering an objective perspective or a biased perspective based on stuff I don't care about. So, for example, let's just take one of the Marvel, movies, like Thor is out right now. And I already suspected I would like that movie based on knowing what my preferences are, right? And I read some reviews that were like, yay, it's awesome. And I read a review that was like, meh. And the person was like, I just don't like all this CGI. I just don't like all the fast blah, 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 blah action and whatever. Okay, well, I'm not going to really take that person's evaluation of that movie because I don't mind CGI. I think it's fun. It's something that I find visually appealing and I can buy into it as a fantasy. So I'm not particularly weighting that person's opinion as all that meaningful to me because the criteria it's based on isn't something I agree with. I don't think CGI is a bad thing in movies. I find it enjoyable. So you see how it's not like I'm saying that person's a bad evaluator or their feedback is like they didn't like it, therefore the movie's no good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we don't look at something from the same stance. So to apply that on a personal level, if I get feedback from someone that's like, I don't like your Facebook Live shares. They're just way too personal and it makes me uncomfortable. So that could sting a little bit, sure, if I got that feedback. And it's probably true for some people. I can't imagine that everybody likes them to the same extent, right? But I look at that with some neutrality. I'm like, well, how do I feel when somebody shares from a personal place? How do I feel when someone that I admire, like Brene Brown, does it, when she shares personal stories? I feel warm. I feel connected. It makes me want to follow her more. So that is something that I appreciate, and clearly other people appreciate. There is an audience for that. Like, I can see neutrally in my observation that she attracts a lot of people, and partly because she shares personal stories. That's what I see people listing that they like about her. I can watch an audience when I'm seeing her and see people responding and feeling companionable with her because of that. So if a person gives me the feedback that they don't like, that's what I'm doing, I might look at it like I catch it over here, and then I'm like, well, let me pick out the piece of like, is there anything that I'm doing differently that may or may not make me as successful as someone who's much more successful like Brene Brown in terms of audience level? Is there anything that I'm sharing in my personal stories that might be an overshare? Is there like, am I doing that well or not? I don't know, but it's something I can kind of look at with that piece of feedback. The rest of the feedback might not be helpful to me because we have different evaluation criterias. That person doesn't happen to like overly personal sharing, and I happen to like it, and other people happen to like it, and I've gotten that feedback. So that's just an example of looking at feedback that comes at me or could come at you, and being in a neutral place with it of like, well, which piece seems relevant based on who that person is and how they're evaluating things, right? So with a client, they get some negative evaluation from a coworker. And that coworker was upset with them during a work project, and they're kind of doing the wrap-up interview set. And that person can look at that and say, well, it's funny because I was kind of upset with them too. We just weren't talking about it. Okay, well, so there was a two-way street going on there. Instead of looking at like, oh my God, I'm terrible, a person was upset with me, therefore I did everything wrong. You can instead look at it and go, well, so there was a mutual issue here. And the piece of feedback to take out might be, what was I doing that was upsetting them? Is there something that based on what I value, I might want to modify? Or is some of it like, oh, I just didn't like that you wrote me so many emails? Well, okay, so you might just not like emails, but in our work culture, that's just how we document what we're doing. So you didn't like it, but this is what needed to happen for the communication series to happen. And that's not really about me. So I'm wondering if that's making sense and if that's starting to be helpful. And I know not a lot of you are on with me live right now, but I imagine some folks will watch it later. As you're watching, I'm wondering, what experiences have you had with that kind of level of self-judgment, how you receive feedback, whether you take it in straight to the heart and just wholeheartedly absorb it and then get really confused or feel hurt? What has happened is you've tried to take pieces of it. Just can I extract a piece that I can hold with curiosity rather than trying to fix it right away? That's another thing that I think is an important point. Anymore, I don't look to rectify a situation immediately if someone's not happy with something that I did. If I like by accident hurt someone's feelings, even if I didn't mean to, regardless of my intention, like intention matters, but impact matters more when it comes to relationship. If we want to get along with people that we want to keep in our lives, sometimes we have to think about intention or impact as well. So there's things where I can just say, wow, that was not my intention, but I hear that was the impact, and let me take responsibility for the impact. Like when I made this joke at your expense, I thought that you would laugh along and enjoy it, but you're telling me that's not how it landed, and that I'm sorry for that. That's not what I meant to do. And let me see if I can modify how I joke with you in the future, for example. But if it's not something that's like directly obvious that the impact was really most of mine, but kind of more a mutual thing, if somebody gives me feedback about something that they didn't like about our interaction together, I don't jump on it immediately as like, oh my God, I have to fix this or else I will die, right? One of the ways I talk about this with clients is like, is there a tiger here? Is this really an emergency? Or is this just something that's a piece of data that you can sit with and have curiosity about? So anymore, when someone comes to me with here, sort of a negative impact of our interaction, I'll sit with it and be like, okay, so I received your feedback over here, not right here. Let's receive it over here. Let me look at this. What piece of this could be true about me? Like, and one of the first places I start from is my sense of being good enough and worthy is not in the hands of anybody else. That is something that I am the sole authority on, that I already have chosen to believe and know that I am good enough and I am worthy. And there's a lot more work that goes into that, but I am the keeper of that. I hold that eternal flame, no one else. So I just like re-acknowledge in myself, I'm already good enough, I'm already worthy. Yes, I'm a messed up, flawed, imperfect human being, like all of us are. We all are. So I'm already acknowledging perfection's never an attainable thing. So, okay, I already am vulnerable and messy, and that's okay. And I'm loved and I'm worthy. So without that being on the table, what can I look at from this piece of feedback? Like, which piece of this could be true neutrally? Let me observe. Well, am I somebody who's being selfish in this scenario? Without self-judging, just, was I really more focused on myself in that moment? Was I not paying attention to them, or whatever the feedback is, was I being anxious and not present and therefore doing something out of anxiety or whatever? Like, I keep open questions. And when good enough isn't on the table as part of whether or not I get to have that, it's much easier to stay in a place of more objective neutrality of, could I have done that better? How could I do it better next time? What piece doesn't seem like it's about me, right? So these are just some thoughts on developing that neutral inner observer. I would say what's really important about this is knowing your intention is crucial for self-love. But focusing on impact, how your actions impact others, is crucial for relational health and harmony. So intention is how you can like reaffirm your self-compassion, but working on impact is what you need, like how you perform your actions, how you say things, what you do, and how that lands with other people. That's what's important for building healthier relationships. So we kind of have to track both, and tracking them both with curious neutrality and really being able to be open and honest with ourselves. That's what that takes. So hopefully this gives you a piece of something that's useful. Let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can comment or you can message me privately. I hope you're having a great night, friends. Take care.